All right, what's up, guys? We have Anthony Cosenza here. He has his own Bengals podcast. So, and I've known him since high school. So, what's going on, Anthony? How you doing today?
Micah. What is going on, my friend? I come here, you're blowing vape smoke in the screen and just being the guy that I know and love. How you doing, man?
It's a vaping podcast.
It
I was
that's
just
the theme. That's the theme.
No, it's not. But I was just thinking of that like before. I was like, I might as well just have like call it the vaping podcast where we just talk about vaping and because
Venting and
yeah.
vaping.
But so what's going on, man? I know the Bengals just lost
Ugh,
yesterday.
ugh, yeah.
So how bummed are you right now?
Pretty bummed. Pretty bummed. But I mean, you've known me for a long time. I know you're not the biggest football guy, but you've known me for a long time and you've known how bad the Bengals have been for so long. And for them in
Yeah.
back-to-back years, basically go to a Super Bowl. That was crushing. They lost, but go to a Super Bowl and then be one game away from going back to it again and losing by only a last-minute field goal. I mean, things have changed a lot for that team. So pretty psyched about that. And it has everything to do with their coach and quarterback that they have for sure. So, and those guys are going to be there for the foreseeable future. So it looks like, they're maybe going to be, this is going to be hopefully a regular thing for them, but yeah, tough one yesterday. And I don't know if you probably saw in our little text thread and stuff, there's a lot of talk about the officiating and some questionable calls, non-calls in that game. And it's not just, I was just talking about on my show. It's not just a Bengals fan, a circle of Bengals fans talking about, oh man, the officiating. It's pretty prevalent outside of Bengals fan circles. Like national media are talking about the officiating in that game and how atrocious it was. But I mean, bottom line is Bengals didn't do enough to win and came up just short against a team that they actually had won the last three times. They beat them, but not this time.
By the officiating, do you mean is it like kind of like the politics or like the like what do you mean? Like do you think that it was like kind of like they don't want them to win for some reason?
Well,
That's
I mean,
like
the talking point from a lot of people is the NFL is rigged, and they didn't want the Bengals in the game again. They wanted Philly and Kansas City, and they all this kind of stuff. I don't really buy into all of that. I've just there were some this crew also, by the way, called the Super Bowl. Were the officials for the Super Bowl, or the main guy was the official for the Super Bowl last year, and there's a very late questionable call on one of the last drives of the game against the Bengals that extended the Rams drive that they eventually got the game-winning touchdown out of very, very late in the game. And then in this one, there were a couple of calls and or non-calls that went favorably for the Chiefs, and people are kind of looking at this thing going, what? There's just an imbalance. It looked like there were calls being made or not, favorable calls not being made for one team, and it wasn't the same way for the other team. And a lot of stuff occurred within 2 minutes. And so it was just kind of a mess. And I think even the early game, I didn't watch a ton of the early game yesterday, the Niners in Philly. I think there were some officiating issues there. So now I think there's just like a bigger talking point of like, how do you fix this? Because they're people, right? I mean, even the best trained eyes, they'll catch a lot of the stuff. But I mean, these guys they're not even full-time officials, dude. They are trained and they, study and take classes and they know the rules and all that kind of stuff. But this isn't their 9-to-5 full-time job. Obviously, the football season is a couple of months a year, handful of months a year. And these guys have other jobs outside of this. So I don't know if that plays a part of it. I don't know if it's further training. I don't know if it's altering the rules or what have you, but there's just a lot of interesting talking points based on officiating, which is not what you want in basically the second biggest game of the year, right? I mean, there's two games that determine who goes to the Super Bowl when you're talking about questionable calls in that big of a game. And even in the Super Bowl last year, you go, man, that's whatever. But it kind of comes sometimes with the territory of teams that, when you're the losing team, it's easier to look at some of the missed calls, right? than when you're not.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising too that the refs, or yeah, I was gonna say the umps, the refs are part time, because you would think for this big of a game, that would be like their full-time job would be like full-time refs, but there just are like no full-time refs. Like
not real. And the other thing that's really weird about these games, a lot of times at the beginning of the year, officials are grouped in a unit because there's multiple officials in a game, right? There's like a line judge and side judges and a main official and back judge and all these kinds of things. So where they kind of try and keep an eye on a lot of different things going on. And in the regular season, a group they work together throughout the regular season, which is, they play 17 games, but it's an 18-game season. And so they kind of know how to work with each other and what they're looking at, and they're all on kind of the same page, you would think, if they're working together. Well, what they do, there's some sort of merit system in the NFL where it's like, they kind of take who they deem the best referees and they mishmash them for the playoffs, this kind of all-star referee squad. And these guys haven't called games together really. And then you kind of get all this stuff where it's like, oh man, there's maybe not the cohesion that you would have from the referee group that went through refereeing 18 games together. Right. So, and that's kind of a weird thing for the playoffs. You would think you would want, if there's quality people within a unit, you would say, okay, just take that unit and work, but they try and bring in different eyes in each game for the referees. I guess I don't really know the reasoning too well behind it, but it's just kind of a different deal. And they're probably going to have to examine how they do all of this in the off season.
They need to get like AI in there to be making.
That's what everyone's saying. I don't really know. Well,
Okay.
yeah, some people are saying there's like, the eye in the sky stuff or AI or, replace them with robots, or I don't know what you would do with that, but I don't know that you do that because it is part of the human element of the game. Right. It's like baseball, umpires, they make bad calls all the time, balls and strikes, and they catch a lot of hell for it. But, what are you going to do? Have robots back there and take that element out of the game? I don't know.
Yeah.
You drinking Celsius there? What are you drinking?
I'm actually drinking Hard Rock. Have you heard of it?
No. Is it an alcoholic beverage?
Yeah, I literally got it for like a whole pack for $5.99 at grocery outlet.
Seltzers or what?
They're seltzers, yeah.
Was it
and
good?
I like to drink on the podcast because to calm my nerves, you know what I mean? But
I used to when I podcast, I used to drink, on my podcast, and I don't really do it much anymore. Sometimes when it's game day, if I do an immediate post game reaction, I had a couple beers or something during the game, I'll do that. But most of the time I'm try to be as sober as possible on the air.
Yeah.
I should have cracked one open for this show though.
Slamming IPAs.
Yeah, slamming IPAs for Micah's show. Well, what is it? What is the name of this show? You haven't even told me. What's the name of the show?
We don't have a name. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's called Conversation with Strangers. So in this situation,
okay, yes.
It was called Friends from High School. I was doing it with Lucas, as you know, I think, and then like Daniel was in for a bit, but then they both dropped out, and now I have Jordan, who's only is here like half of the time. But and I'm mainly just talking with people I meet off of Reddit. But then me and Jordan have done a couple solo ones too. So yeah, did you watch the game with your brother and your family, or how did you watch the game?
I just watched it at home. I had both my kids solo. Kelly's out of town, so I had both of them solo and just kind of hung out and watched it because they both have strep and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
And in terms of if there is like some kind of, well, first of all, you can't really reverse obviously the decision once it's been made. That's what kind of sucks. It's like you can complain about the decisions that the refs made, but it's like there probably is no reversing, right?
So it's weird. You can challenge a lot of plays, right? Like they have a challenge process where if they call a pass incomplete, but you're like, hey, he made that catch, or vice versa, or he's out of bounds here and it's no touchdown. Oh, I'm gonna, they're gonna review that and review turnovers and all this kind of stuff. They review all that stuff, and coaches can actually challenge a couple of times per game calls on the field, right? And so they have that, but non-challengeable plays, you can't challenge penalties. You can't challenge a non-call. You can't challenge, oh, you called holding here, let's look at that again. They don't do that. And I think they don't do that because if the game is already 3+ hours, and if you're kind of bogging down the system, I guess, with, hey, with minutia like that, it would make the game really, really lengthy, but at the same time, it could eliminate some of this stuff that's coming out of this weekend and really change results of games. The other element, I think, why people are saying NFL is rigged, there's a lot of hands, and you know this being a gambling guy, dude. There is a lot of sports book hands in the NFL pot right now. There are a lot. And now more and more states are legalizing sports gambling. Ohio, where the Bengals are from, being one. And so that's like, when you add in that type of money and that type of revenue all into this thing, it's a big cash cow for the league. It's a big cash cow for these sports books. And that, Vegas obviously is the benefactor of all this stuff, and they control all the lines, who's favored, who's not favored, all that stuff. So you throw that into the mix, and it's like, oh man, it gives more fuel to the fire that people are talking about in terms of, the NFL wants it this way, and all that stuff.
Yeah. Whenever money's involved, right, things can get a little shaky.
And the NFL has a ton of it.
Yeah. And so I was also going to ask you, and that's one reason, but is there any other reason for them not wanting the Bengals? Like, maybe they just want like a bigger city in or something like that? Or like, do you think there's any type of like payoff?
Yeah, sometimes it's the market size. And I mean, they also, the thing is, with the Eagles and the Chiefs, the Eagles are a big market in Philly. Kansas City is not necessarily a big market, but the coach of the Chiefs used to coach the Eagles. So there's this big storyline that you could revolve around that. The Chiefs quarterback is one of the most popular, if not the most popular player in the league right now. The Bengals quarterback is getting up there in popularity as well. And their team is getting up there in popularity too. But, there's just some of that stuff that stokes the talk, right? That people are kind of saying, well, of course they wanted to get this person in and that person in and this team in and all of that for money reasons or popularity ratings, all that kind of stuff. But I mean, you'd like to think that it's mostly a fair shake at things. And I mean, when you look at the game last night, I had a lot of complaints about the officials in that game, but I've also said it on my show that, quite honestly, I mean, the Bengals just made a couple plays less than the Chiefs did. And the Chiefs just, the last 4 times these two teams have played each other, and it's all been a big talking point for the last couple of years. Each of these games, the Bengals had won the previous 3, and all 4 of them have been determined by either 3 points in total, either a last minute field goal, or a team, kind of having the ball and sealing it at the very last drive of the game. And they have not been blowouts. They have been down to the wire and really good games. And last night was kind of the same deal.
Yeah. And I mean, it's really saying a lot, though, that you and your brother have been huge fans forever, like 20 years or 25 years or whatever. And they weren't good for a long time. And now they went last year to the Super Bowl, and then this year they almost went. So that's really cool. And it sounds like they are still going to be good going into next year.
Hopefully.
Yeah. And so look, going forward with the football, the Super Bowl and all that, who do you think it'll end up coming down to? Or they already know, right? So now who is it?
Yeah, it's Philadelphia and Chiefs. Yeah. Okay. The Eagles and the Chiefs.
Yeah. I know very little, as you know, but so it's going to be them two. What are your predictions for the Super Bowl? Who do you think will win? Do you care if either team wins?
I don't care. After last night, I'm tempted to not even watch the damn thing. But it's weird because I think that the Chiefs quarterback is so good that he can kind of transcend a lot of other weaknesses on his own team. But he still has an ankle injury that could be bugging him even 2 weeks from now. And the offensive and defensive lines of Philadelphia are very, very good. Very, very good. So that's going to be something to watch. I think I give a little bit of an early edge to the Eagles just because they seem to be a little bit more of a complete team. And their quarterback's pretty damn good in his own right too. Jalen Hurts. He can do a lot of the, moving around in the pocket, running for touchdowns, and throwing the ball down the field, all of that, but not as good as Mahomes, at least not yet. So yeah, I would say I kind of maybe leaning towards the Eagles in this one a little bit, but I wouldn't be surprised either way.
Yeah, and in terms of the whole Tom Brady what's he? I can't even think of the team that he was on.
Buccaneers,
Or he is on the Buccaneers, but the team that he was on before that he won so
Patriots.
Many, yeah, the Patriots. So in terms of his era and the Patriots era, or just his era, I guess, does that kind of come to an end? Like, is he just not as good anymore? Because I know for a long time I was hearing pretty much his name all the time.
Yeah, I mean, he even moved on to a different team and got them to the Super Bowl and won it. And I mean, he's pretty amazing. This last year, a lot of things kind of fell off the cliff for him statistically, for the team. And they made it to the playoffs, but they were in an extremely weak division that they won. And so they kind of backed their way in the playoffs, and then they lost to an okay Dallas team by pretty significant amount of points in the opening round. So you kind of felt like, man, they didn't even really, did they really deserve to be there? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I think, as we all know, he's kind of gone through some personal strife that's been made public. Brady has, and that kind of stuff can affect you. And the team didn't play well. They had some coaching changes and all kinds of different stuff. So I think he says he's gonna play, till he's 50 or something. I tend to actually believe him, but you started to kind of see Father Time finally catch up a little bit to him after he was able to avoid him. We'll see if a lot of people don't know if he's going to be back with Tennessee or Tampa Bay rather, or if he's going to go somewhere else. They don't really know. He may go back to San Francisco. I don't know.
And then how old is he now? Like 40 or something? Or
oh no, he's let's say he's like 45. I don't know offhand.
Okay.
Yeah, he's like early mid 40s. He's got a couple of years on you and I, my friend.
So that is somewhat of an old age to begin with, right? For a quarterback. I mean, most of them are probably younger, right?
It is, yes. He also, though, as opposed to like two of the guys that I was just talking about, the Eagles quarterback and the Chiefs quarterback, Brady was a guy that didn't run around and take a lot of hits. The other guys are more mobile and do more things. They're a little bit more dynamic in terms of athleticism, what they can do. So Brady was he's a classic pocket passer. He's played behind some good offensive lines and whatnot over the years. So the hits he has taken has been limited. So he's kind of been able to be pretty healthy. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess by age, he's older up there. But quarterbacks, especially the old style pocket passers like him, tend to play longer because they're not taking necessarily as many hits as some of the other kind of more athletic guys that go and take a hit here and there, multiple hits per game, because they're running the football instead of just sitting back there and passing.
Yeah. And his personal stuff, was it mainly like the Giselle stuff? He got a divorce, right? From Giselle. Yeah. And then also I heard something about,
and obviously it's public too, right? It's like public. So, I mean, I don't know. The Bitcoin thing, he lost money on that, right?
I want to say that obviously it's probably not his fault, but he was sponsored by some sort of, I think he backed like FTX or something, like the whole FTX thing, like the,
yeah, he's 45, by the way.
Okay.
He's 45. Yeah, I think he backed something, or I know Aaron Rodgers did this, the Packers quarterback. He may have had a portion or some of his contract paid to him in Bitcoin. And obviously all that stuff is, from what I know, is fallen off the cliff a little bit, right? Value wise. So yeah, I think there's that. I mean, Brady doesn't need that money anyway. He's accrued an immense amount of wealth over his, but obviously that is a big, that's still a big financial hit. And then you've got this divorce, which obviously I assume is hard enough. And then of course you've got it being, because he's such a public figure and his wife being a public figure, it's just dirty laundry aired everywhere. Right. So all of that has to, even the most confident or I don't know, seemingly invincible type of guy like a Tom Brady probably had some tough moments this year with all of that going on, I would think.
Yeah, and then wasn't she seen with someone else after something?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't. I mean, there was something where, there was some guy I think in the mix, and all I saw was that maybe that was not a love interest, but maybe it was, and I don't know.
Yeah. And then in terms of the Chargers, who's probably, like our other friend Lucas's biggest team, how did they do? Not great, right?
Have we done a welfare check on Lucas? I don't.
I mean, I know he went to Palm Springs, like just a couple days ago.
I asked because did you not know what happened to that team? That's why I asked that.
Kind of. Was it just like it was a bad beat or something?
Well, they made the playoffs. Playoffs, and they went to Jacksonville to face the Jaguars, who were, kind of a mediocre team, but they were playing well at the end of the year. The Jaguars were. So they went down there. They got about a 4-touchdown lead and let it evaporate, and they lost at the very last second by a field goal, and big upset by the Jaguars in that game. So, I wondered if we checked on Lucas after that one. I saw that one. I was like, oh man, that's a tough one.
It was just kind of like a bad beat. Yeah. And I mean, I've wondered, because you guys get so into the teams, like Lucas, you pretty any serious football fan. And it seems like it would be so depressing year after year to see them, because you ultimately know they're either going all the way and they're going to win. And that's like probably the best thing that could happen for you.
And it's extremely hard to do. And that's extremely hard to do.
Very hard to do. So every year you just kind of get let down, although now it's turning around for you guys. But for most teams, it's probably just depressing every year. And I know Lucas gets depressed and other people get depressed. So I wonder why, like, you guys put yourself through it.
Well, it's a good question. What's crazy, dude, is so the Bengals, the way that they played the first part of the year and the last part of the year, essentially, the game they lost yesterday would have been the 20th game that they played this entire 20th game that they played for the season. They played 17 regular season games. They played the wild card game 18, the divisional round game number 19, and then the Chiefs game. So there's 21 total games, including the Super Bowl, right? Potentially, that a team plays, maybe 20 if you get the first round bye. Essentially, the way that the chips fell for the Bengals, they would have had to have rattled to win the Super Bowl. They would have had to have rattled off 12 straight wins, which is crazy in the NFL to win 12 in a row to win a Super Bowl. And we're talking about going to a Kansas City on the road and beating them on the road, talking about going to Buffalo and beating that team, which they did on the road, beating a divisional rival in the opening round of the playoffs, which is not easy. And they did. So, I mean, they rattled off 10 straight wins. They didn't get number 11 or 12, but they rattled off. So it is extremely hard for a team to win a Super Bowl, even if you have the quarterback, even if you have, that's why rarely Tom Brady's kind of the anomaly where you don't see the same team winning the Super Bowl year after year. Hell, the Rams who beat the Bengals barely last year in the Super Bowl, they didn't even make the playoffs this year. So, and they were like one of the worst teams in the NFC actually. So it's extremely hard. So that's why when you ask that question, it's like, yeah, man, it's hard because you have this hope at the beginning of the year and you're like, you think about it, you're like, damn, it is hard for a team to win a Super Bowl.
Well, how many teams are there? Like total 30 or
32.
So you have 1 in 32 kind of, but even probably less than that if your team.
Yeah, but because it depends on how stacked your deck is, right? I mean, if you have the quarterback, if you have the coach, if you have, a good roster, I mean, obviously your chances are way better to get to and win a Super Bowl than teams that, maybe are picking first overall or whatever. The thing that's when you talk about, I don't know why you got yourselves through this and stuff. You know what I noticed, oddly enough, especially in more recent years, I've noted I used to let it ruin my week and all this kind of stuff, and I'm like, damn, why am I doing this, all this kind of stuff. Maybe it's just because having kids and other stuff going on, but I think the other part of it is actually writing and podcasting and forcing myself to be more analytical or a little bit less biased. I try and be as objective as possible. I do look at everything through a Bengals lens and whatnot, but I think looking at it that way has kind of given me less of an emotional reaction to losses or something like that, as opposed to like years and years ago, a loss like yesterday, I would have spiraled for weeks. I would have been so pissed off. Right. And now it's just kind of like, well, I got to talk about, I don't know if it's kind of a therapy thing where I can talk about stuff, or I don't know. I just don't have the same kind of, I don't know what you would call visceral reactions or whatever about a loss than I did before. And I think I partially credit it to writing about it and talking about it and, doing that sort of thing.
Well, yeah. Plus, part of it is you do have to go talk about it, and so you kind of have to force yourself to be able to talk about it without getting emotional or whatever on the podcast, right? Instead of like maybe bottling it up. Yeah, you're getting it out there, and you kind of have to. So, it also kind of reminds me a little bit of like maybe gambling, because it's like it's just like playing poker or blackjack or whatever. Like I guess you're just kind of like hoping to win. In your situation, it's kind of like I'm hoping my team will win, and to a certain extent, it is just luck. Like obviously, you're not going to like have any involvement too much in their winning or losing. So you're just kind of like hoping and praying. And then also I would imagine you're just hoping that they get to the next level, maybe, so you can just watch them more. And obviously you just want them to win the whole thing. But and I'm sure like when a team like, Tom Brady's team, I forget the name again, the Saints or
the Patriots or the Bucks,
the Patriots, when they were winning so much, why am I forgetting even the city of the Patriots?
New England.
So New England.
Boston,
so if you're
Boston
living,
area.
that's like your goal, I guess, would be to be in that area at every time they win the Super Bowl, or at least go, and then you're just like riding high. I guess that's like the ultimate goal for you, right? Is every year like they're going to the Super Bowl and hopefully winning, right? That would be kind of the ideal, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you look at it too now, though, and this is what's, for so long, you kind of have these one-off teams that make the playoffs or get in it or go to the Super Bowl, whatever. But you are seeing now, especially since the Bengals 2 years in a row, the Chiefs definitely, Brady's still in it regardless of his team, but you're starting to see kind of a small handful of similar teams that are going to go back. It's the same thing when Peyton Manning was with the Colts, right? I mean, the Colts were in it all the time. And then we went to Denver, same deal. They were in it every year he was there. And so, when you have that quarterback, you have a good coach, obviously, too. But if you have that quarterback, you're going to be in it. And from a Bengals side, I think thankfully they have, arguably a top 2, top 3 quarterback in the league right now.
Yeah, and it's also weird to me, like these guys, I don't even know who a lot of these guys are, but to you guys, these players are almost kind of like I don't want to say gods, but like your your idols or whatever, probably, right? Like,
that's not how
not idol.
I try not to idolize or whatever. I mean,
yeah,
it's what's kind of cool is, on my show, it's a little Bengals show, whatever. But I've been kind of fortunate enough to have a lot of like former players, current players, a lot of people that I like grew up watching and not maybe idolizing as a kid. I don't really do that anymore, but I've met these people, had them on my show. I go out to Cincinnati, I've talked with them and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, wow, that's where I kind of say like, wow, I mean, this is a person I grew up watching. Right. And how cool is this that I'm talking to them about Bengals football on a show? And what I mean? So that part is kind of is you get a little fanboy or starstruck at that point, but not, I don't sit there and, we're not worthy. The old, was it the old Mike Myers, Wayne's World? We're not worthy. We're not, remember?
Yeah.
So I don't do that kind of stuff. I mean, I think when you're younger, it's easier to kind of say, oh, I either idolize or you're my hero or what have you. And so I don't really look at those guys as that. Maybe more so when I was younger, but there are people who do it, that idolize them and,
maybe more so, not so much like idolize, but like maybe more so. I don't even know if this is true for you, but like, that's like, I don't really want to say like you wish you were there, but like kind of.
Well, they get put up on a pedestal type of thing, right? I mean, it's like
you wish you were in the game, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a little bit of envy where it's like, damn, I wish I had that money. I wish I was that athletic, all that kind of stuff. But it just kind of is not that way for me. So Yeah, but I mean, there are people that definitely put people up on pedestals and stuff like that, obviously, and that's okay.
Yeah, and then in terms of the gambling, like if you were to I don't think you do sports bet, right? But if you were to sports bet, do you feel like you would have some sort of edge just because of your knowledge? It seems like you have so much knowledge, and I don't know anything about sports betting, but since you have so much knowledge in football, do you think you would have like an edge in terms of, okay, I think this guy, you know?
Yeah, unfortunately, I just I do with when it goes to the Bengals, I would have a little too much emotion in it, where I'm like, oh, but I feel like I've actually been relatively decent at picking games. This year, I had a couple. We did a thing through a partnership we had through an app called Tally Site, where it's an app. You can pick games and spreads and all that kind of stuff. I had a few good weeks in there. It was just for fun. It wasn't actually with money. But so I did that, and then it's weird though. Fantasy football, I suck at it, man. I've won it a couple of times, but in doing it like 20 plus years, I feel like I've only won it like 2 or 3 times, and I'm usually like kicked out pretty early into the season, it seems. So I don't know, and I feel like sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make this bet, and I never actually place the bet, and then it ends up coming to fruition what I was going to bet on, but I never put money down on it. And I'm like, oh, damn it. So, I don't know. It's like anything, dude. I mean, you can feel like maybe you got, 50, 60, 70% of the picks right or whatever. But I mean, law of averages, you're going to have another week where you're like, oh man, I did super terrible here. So,
Yeah. So in terms of to get off of football, in terms of like music, movies, like pop culture stuff, I guess. For a while, I haven't really been able. Like I know me and you used to go to concerts, we listen to bands, and I actually was just listening just by chance to like Mars Volta last night. I like put them on. I hadn't listened to them in forever. But in terms of music, and movies, I guess, what have you been into recently? Because I'm always looking for stuff to or even podcasts too. Like I'm always looking for stuff to listen to in the car and or even watch with movies, TV shows. What are some of the stuff that you've been into?
unfortunately, like music, it hasn't been a lot of like new stuff. I'm either re-exploring some stuff I already have on there on my iPhone or whatever, or I told you I went to that festival, the When We Were Young festival, which kind of reconnected me with all these old bands that you and I used to like go see and stuff. And I think I'm seeing Taking Back Sunday again in July. They're playing in Irvine, and I think that's with like Andrew McMahon and the Wilderness. I think is going to be there, and
Oh wow,
yeah, and trying to think. I think Paris is going to be there.
Paris.
Yeah, um,
I
yeah,
don't know if I know
Paris.
Paris.
Anyway, I'll have to look up
who's Paris.
It's the band that Paris, and it's got the upside down V or whatever. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, okay. I don't know
It's
if I've
not.
really heard them. I
They're
don't know
kind
if I know
of.
a song by them.
Yeah. I think they're kind
Okay.
of like I haven't really listened to them much either, but I plan to get into them. I think they're more like a little bit of a um. God, what's that band that I liked?
For some reason, I thought you were talking about that French band that I'm actually forgetting the name of that band too.
You're talking about
You know,
Phoenix?
yeah, Phoenix. I thought you were talking about Phoenix,
No,
probably just
no,
because
not Phoenix.
Paris. But that sounds like
Um,
more of a show I would like to go to than you, though. I'm kind of surprised you're going to that one.
yeah, and then there's I always still like, because I have a somewhat recent album from them that I play every once in a while because it's got a little bit of an 80s vibe to it. I still like Shiny Toy Guns. I don't know
Yeah,
if they're even putting out music anymore or not, but just kind of some of that stuff right now. And then TV, I don't watch or podcasts and all that stuff. I don't watch a lot of TV, unfortunately, with kids. I don't get a lot of that, but um I've kind of started streaming Yellowstone. I don't know if you've
yeah.
watched that.
Just
That's
the
kind of
first episode.
it's kind of it's a pretty good show. Kind of feels like old school Dallas plus these what was it, like Sons of Anarchy slash Western slash, it kind of has all this. It's got some edginess to it, so it's cool. I
Old
kind
school
of
Dallas, like the old school show
yeah,
Dallas.
remember yeah, in like the 80s.
I
Yeah,
don't
it's
think
good
I
because
ever saw that show.
it's got the westerny like family that's got a lot of money, but it's also got like the almost like a mafia feel to it. Basically, it's pretty cool, and Costner, Mr. Western, he's the
Yeah.
main guy in it, but it's like edgier and different. So that's pretty good. Podcasts, I actually listen to like crime stuff. Like even like as cheesy as Dateline is, I'll listen to like Dateline episodes, or if you've heard the show Crime Junkie, have you heard of that show?
My girlfriend listens to it, and I've listened to a little bit of it. Yeah, the two girls.
It's okay. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just some of that stuff. I just listen to it. If I get a long drive or something, I'll pop that on.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, I don't really like listening to my own show, or other shows. I don't really listen to it a lot. So,
Like other Bengals shows either.
yeah, I don't listen to like a lot of other football podcasts or anything like that either. Yeah, I just
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of shiny toy guns, I don't know if you remember this, but we went to some sort of like, I think it was a Halloween event or something,
yeah,
but I
I
remember
remember
it was
in
do you remember
09.
that?
Yeah,
What?
it was in 09. It was at
Was
the
that what it was?
Orange County Fairgrounds.
And I remember I took some girl that I was like dating, and I got like super drunk before we even got there. And then we got there, and I remember like we were in line or something, and I went to like the bathroom and like literally like couldn't find my way back because it was like dark. And then I want to like, or no, yeah. Then we went in and we were in that like warehouse type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I left for some reason. I think, once again, I was drunk or something. And I came back and you guys were like shiny toy guns played. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, I don't even think we knew like they were on
It
the
was
bill.
it was a really random festival. I can't remember who all was there, and it's like if you know the Orange County Fairgrounds, they have like a lot of different exhibition areas and stuff. So I think they spread out different bands in different exhibition halls and stuff. And so yeah, I think like Zach came with us. I think
Zach was there. I'm assuming Lucas probably.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sounds right. Yeah,
I don't even remember them. Like, I just don't even think that I knew they were on the bill. Did we even know? And they just like played randomly.
Yeah.
And
I'm trying to remember who else was there. That was like the one band I knew that I knew there. I think I can't remember who else. It was so long ago. It was like 14 or 15 years ago, dude.
I mean, that was when I was living with Lucas too. So yeah, that was a while ago. Yeah. So, and then what was the other band too that was like similar to Shiny Toy Guns, but they also had that like 80s like synth? I don't even know for some reason I got these two bands mixed up, and I'm totally blanking on names right now.
There's
da, na, 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 na. Like, I'm a terrible singer, but da, na, 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 na. You remember that song?
Yes, I know exactly. I actually know exactly who you're talking about.
You're able
Legitimately,
to figure it out.
The Naked
What?
and Famous. The Naked
Exactly.
and Famous.
I'm glad you figured it out. So there's Naked and Famous, Shiny Toy Guns. That was like a whole kind of, maybe MGMT would fit into that.
That like
synth 80s.
Yeah, and M83 and
yeah.
What's that other one? Not Motion City Sound. What's the other one? Passion Pit, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, Passion Pit. Yeah, so me and Megan went to a show, Just Like Heaven in Long Beach. Like, I guess it was like pre-COVID. Now there's a new one, but it was like pre-COVID, and it was MGMT, Passion Pit, the Yeahs, like Grizzly Bear, Beach House. That one was pretty good.
There's this band is not a band anymore, and it crushes me because they were just one of my favorites. And even like their newest album before they broke up, Mute Math, I still just think that band should have been way bigger than they were. They were just, their shows were awesome. The music was awesome. I don't know. I don't know that they'll ever get back together, but that was a really cool band.
Like we saw them at Glass House. Do you remember that?
I do.
That was a good show
with Spencer.
Yeah. And who else played that show? Do you remember?
I don't. Was that the
we would
I can't remember what that was.
I remember we saw the Used, and we saw him with Ozzy Osbourne's daughter, Kelly Osbourne.
Yeah,
Do you remember that?
I do. I
And it
do.
was
And
like
we,
kind of like a big deal at the time that they were like dating.
yeah. And then we saw Bright Eyes there one night, and we went down the
Yeah.
street to go get some like burritos or something at some place. And Connor was in line. Do you remember that?
Yeah. I
I
think
don't,
that it
I don't want to put
wasn't
him on
cursive.
blast. I don't want to put him on blast, but I think I told you, dude, he at that When We Were Young festival, he was oh super drunk and just almost couldn't form coherent sentences, and it's
Oh
pretty bad.
yeah.
But the music actually sounded good when he was playing music, but when he talked, it was just abrasive and it was just
Yeah.
not. Ugh.
It was the same thing when we saw him. I don't know if you remember, but
Yeah,
I mean, he wasn't as bad. I think he wasn't talking as much, but you could tell he was like drunk and stumbling around, and he'd wait like 5 minutes in between songs. And it
yeah.
was kind of like that awkward tension where you're just like, is he going to
He's
play a
not he's
song?
not addressing the crowd, but he's not playing music. So it's just like, yeah, it's really weird.
And then I heard another thing where like I listened to this IndieCast podcast, and they talk about a lot of indie bands and stuff. And he said when he saw him after he was done playing, he just turned around and like went directly. They had like an orchestra type thing, and he just like walked like kind of like directly into the orchestra and just kind of like. But yeah, I still talk to that. I still talk about that show today as like, does he? And also, he only played one song I think that we knew from the previous album. I think he was playing music from like the upcoming album. And I still talk about that show to this day because I was like, man, it was just so like weird and uncomfortable, and I kind
It
of
was
liked that
bizarre. It
vibe.
was it
Yeah,
was bizarre. Really. I mean,
yeah,
that's really his behavior on stage is bizarre. That's really the only
yeah.
way I could put it.
And it's like most bands, I think, try and put like their best foot forward, which is like what you're supposed to do. But I kind of like it when bands like Blink 182, they'll go out there and just say some like crazy shit. You know what I mean? And everyone's just like it's like awkward, funny kind of, you
Right.
know.
Right.
So I kind of like it when bands just come out and like I don't know, like I don't know about be themselves or like put on some sort of like weird show as opposed to just kind of like playing the music and that's it. But yeah, anything else? I don't know how much more time you have.
I
But if
got
there's
maybe a
anything
couple
else,
minutes. I got a couple minutes. Toss me something.
toss you a random question.
I don't know. Toss me something. I don't know.
So
We got to catch up on Paris. Apparently, we got to listen to some Paris. It sounds like, because none
yeah,
of
if
us
you
know much
want,
about
you
that.
can try and play it from your phone. But I don't know if I know of any Paris. I feel I love talking about music and stuff, and I'm totally down with doing it. But I kind of feel like after a while, it just kind of becomes like name throwing. You're just oh yeah, I remember this band, remember
Oh
this
yeah, I
show.
remember
Like,
them. Yeah.
like I had this guy on who I don't think I knew what we were going to talk about. It was just some random guy. He had like his own podcast. And so we started talking, and then he was in a band, and I was like, "Oh, what kind of band?" And he was like, "Oh, yeah, I was like really into pop punk and emo and all that stuff." So like for 2 hours, we were just talking, like just throwing like names at each other from bands back then, and because it's sad because I don't know if we're just like out of the loop, but it's like I don't even know what is like what I should be listening to at this point. Like it's none of it is really good to me. Whenever I try, like I'll put on my Apple Music like new playlist, and I don't like any of it. I
It's
can't really
trash,
find
dude.
anything.
It's trash.
It's
Like the
all bad. It's
new
all
music.
boring.
New music is trash to me. I mean, I guess that's you and I showing our being 40 or something. I guess I don't know, but I mean, it's just like,
That's what I'm
man,
wondering. Am I
I don't
wondering?
know.
I'm
I
wondering,
know.
are
I
we
mean,
out of the
I
loop?
don't. I used to listen to music a lot. I still listen to music often, but like not nearly as much. And I don't go. I kind of go back to a lot of the bands that I like, and if they come out with some new stuff, then I'll check it out. But um, I usually go back to kind of some old reliables, and some of these bands, like that aren't big, like the ones I just went and saw a few months ago out in Vegas, like they just really haven't been bands for a while. Or that emo movement, the post-punk movement or whatever, just kind of fell flat after 5 to 7 years, right? I mean, there was a window where it was really, really popular, and then it just evolved, and you did more indie stuff, and then it evolved into some of those bands like we talked about, like M83 and all those kinds of bands. And then there was the almost folksy, like what is it? kind of the
like the hey yeah, like not hey yeah, but like because that's the Outcast, but like
the high highs and
the hey or like
yeah
the, oh. I'm trying to think of what band that or the Lumineers type stuff where it's like
yes
and like
yeah
and like the Edward Sharp and the Magnetic Zeros and like
yeah
them.
yes
Right.
of Monsters and Men, right? I mean, like all
Yeah.
these, and so it's just kind of like done this deal, and then I'm like, okay, I mean, whatever. But some of the bigger bands that they've kind of that had a little more staying power. I have seen the Lumineers live, by the way. They are very good live. It's just that movement that kind of have 18 people in your band playing violins and all kinds of shit. It's like, what?
Is that how many they had?
Oh my god, they
Like
had so many people on stage.
on
Oh my god,
stage. It was like a
yes.
whole like orchestra.
Oh my god. Well, that wasn't a whole orchestra, but it was like a pianist, singer, multiple guitarists, bass, all of that. Who's that one? Do you like what is it? The 1980
The 1975.
1975? Is that it? Yeah.
Yeah. Or no,
1985, right?
1975.
Okay.
But like they're probably one of the newer bands that still has it, but it's even their new album I didn't get that into. I was big into like the one probably two records ago with like a brief inquiry into online relationships or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that guy's, I guess, kind of like supposed to be kind of like crazy on stage. Like recently they said he was like eating like a raw piece of like beef or something. And like, he'll like just start like making out with someone. I don't know if it's a guy or a girl on stage. So yeah, there's the 1975. I'm trying to think of who I always have to like look at my phone when I get asked this question.
I know.
There's like people like, do you know, oh man, I'm forgetting. I always forget names like when I try to think of it. Like Boy Genius. There's a band called Boy Genius, and
I've heard of them.
Like Phoebe Bridgers. She's like one of the people in Boy Genius, and so it's like it's still good, but it's kind of like really mellow folk. Like if you're into Bright Eyes, which I know you are, like you would probably be like the modern version of Bright Eyes.
I tried to be into Bright Eyes, but then I go see them and I'm like, what the hell am I watching? It's like it's kind of taints the music when you go see them and you're like, God, this is just like brutal.
You're kind of wondering, it's like I really looked up to this band and I love his music, but he can't even seem, which is sad because he's probably an alcoholic, but it's like he can't even seem to put on like a good show for me, even though, like I said, I kind of like it that he's drunk, but it's like he can't even put on a good show for me, and he's probably making a shit ton of money. And then also about that live show that you went to, I've heard this podcast talk about it too, and it's like a lot of those bands that don't flavor like somebody like I'm forgetting the name again, but I hate when I forget the names, but one of the bands, probably a lot of the bands that are there who don't play very much, I heard that they get like paid a ton of money to go play these shows. So like they'll just play like 1 or 2 or 3 shows a year and make like, who knows, probably like 20,000 or something, and like maybe like be able to live off of just like
I think that's what Taking Back Sunday is doing.
Which isn't a bad gig.
No, I mean, dude, if you saw the amount, I kid you not, if you saw the amount of people at this thing in Vegas, I mean, I would say quite honestly, there at its peak, there was probably 30 to 50,000 people at this thing. I mean, it was huge. Because it's just one big area that has multiple. I mean, it's like a Warped Tour, right? I mean, that's basically it. And so, I mean, there were so many people there. Now, granted, they had a lot of bands and a lot of pieces of the pie to kind of split up amongst the bands, but I tend to think you do that 2 weekends a year. If you're one of the main bands there, you're probably getting a decent amount of money based on all of that.
Just from that one show. I'm trying to think of that. Oh fuck, that's bothering me. It kind of was like do you remember Bayside, the band Bayside?
They played.
Like, okay, so like someone like them. Hawthorne Heights is what I'm thinking of.
They played also.
Yeah, I know. They're like one of those bands where you're like, what are they doing now? And it's
Story
like,
of the Year. Story of the Year was there. They had to remind everybody that they're still putting out music. I was like, oh God, okay. I didn't know that.
I think the question that I have, and I don't think that anybody really knows, is what's the cutoff to where like they're doing fine financially and like they're set and
Well,
then not?
only they can answer that for you. I mean, I don't. Yeah,
Only
I don't.
they could answer that. But I always wonder like how
You,
much money
I
are
would
these
think
bands making?
if you're still getting gigs and you're still getting on, a big festival like that, I tend to think you're probably doing okay, depending on who you are.
Even if you're
Um,
like at the bottom of that rung,
I don't know.
maybe.
So what's interesting is last at the festival in Vegas that when we were young, Glassjaw played, right? And so now he did that. They probably toured a little bit, got back together, and then probably disbanded. And now this festival that I'm going to in July, Andrew McMahon's playing the West Coast shows, I guess, and Head Automatica is playing the East Coast shows. So he's touring with the other band he was in. Daryl
Oh
is
wow.
as
Yeah.
on one of the legs of the tours for the East Coast shows. And I was hoping they were going to play this one, and I found out it was Andrew McMahon, which is fine. It's fine, but yeah,
Which was my girlfriend's favorite band. Well, it was something corporate, and then Jack's Mannequin. She's not as into Andrew McMahon by himself. But yeah, Glassjaw is another
something
band.
corporate. Oh God.
Yeah, I actually just put on their album, no joke, yesterday to them, and for some reason, them and like Mars Volta, who I never listened to, but like me and Megan were driving around, and I just was like, let's throw on some of these old ones. But yeah, so I'm also on Mars Volta. I don't know if you know, but Mars Volta came out with a new album recently.
I did not.
Yeah, you should check that out.
I should.
But as far so Glassjaw was the singer of Glassjaw. That was kind of an interesting change from Glassjaw, who's kind of like more of like a hardcore edgy type band, to Head Automatica. I
Which
always
like
kind of thought
indie dance pop kind of. It was interesting.
And it's kind of, and then it was like I was waiting for Glassjaw to get back together and come out with an album, and it seemed like they did, I think, come out with an album, but they never really made like a full on.
Well, by that time, that movement was
Return.
kind of
I
fizzling
know.
out.
Yeah. But so in terms of that show you're going to, like I said, it seems like more of my type of show than yours. Who are you going for, or has Adam Lazara of Taking Back Sunday changed your mind about Taking Back Sunday with his live
Well,
show?
I always like Taking Back Sunday. I always like their music and stuff. He's kind of a goofball on stage. He just kind of stumbles around a little bit, and he's got this long kind of mane of hair, and he flips. I don't know. He's just. I've seen him a lot now, but I always like them. They sound good. They put on a good show. So it's like, I like them. That's mainly who I'm there for. I have to look at all the other bands there to see all of that. But I mean, that's who, and it's in Irvine. So it's easy. It's at 5 Points. So it's like, whatever,
So you're kind of just going just because. Well, Taking Back Sunday, who are you going for though? Who are the main guys that you're going for?
Them. Yeah.
And then it's a festival, so who else is playing?
Well, it's like a mini thing. I forget what
it's
called. I have to look. Yeah, so it's let me see.
It's too bad we can't. You know how like we used to go to, like, me and Megan were actually talking about this. Like we used to go to like Glass House all the time, me and you mainly. And we go see a
that
show.
That was almost a weekly thing. Sad Summer Festival is what it's called.
Maybe Paris, I'll go. Who are you going with?
Going with my friend Kyle.
That guy you went to that last show with.
Yeah.
The beach, Cal Beach. Yeah.
I just want to see who.
Maybe Zach will be there, and
The Main is another band playing.
Main. Yeah. Maybe Zach will be there, and he'll.
It's not like as huge. Yeah, it's not as huge of a thing as the other one. It's only, I think it's like a half a dozen bands maybe.
And who's headlining? Andrew McMahon or Taking Back Sunday?
I think Taking Back Sunday is.
What do you think about Andrew McMahon? Like, what do you think about how much he, like, I know you don't have any idea, but how much do you think he's making? Like,
I don't know. He's probably
more than
100,000
a year.
I mean, I probably.
Yeah. It's a good gig, man.
Yeah, it is. The Main, Paris, Hot Mulligan, Mom Jeans, Stand Atlantic, and Taking Back Sunday. And then they have others, the others that are like, depending on where it is, Andrew McMahon, who is going to be playing at Irvine, Head Automatica, which is the other deal. LS Dunes, I don't know what that is, and Motion City
That's
Soundtrack.
I know Ellis Dunes. It's kind of like a
Cliff
super
Diver, Daisy Grenade, Sincere Engineer. I don't know if those are
LS
motion.
Dunes is kind of like a super group with like members from My Chemical Romance,
Oh, really?
The Seos and singer Anthony Green, Circus Survive
Really?
singer. Yeah, it's
Oh.
kind of like a heavy rock My Chemical Romance style. Yeah, maybe I'll go. And also maybe Zach will go and he'll see you and like take a picture of you and then not
Yeah,
say
from
hi.
behind, and then just it'll be good.
But yeah, so the days of going to the Glass House for $20 on a weekend and seeing like the used or something,
Those are
Glass
gone, my
Jaw,
friend. Those are
the days of your now
saw
it's like
saw a lot of
$100.
good bands at Glass House. Saw a lot of good bands at that place.
Yeah. And it's like
Jimmy. Remember we saw Jimmy on like one of the record release nights? I think
yeah.
it was the night they released Futures. We saw them there. We saw the Used there. I saw Juliana Theory there.
I saw them there too.
Did you? Okay. Did you go to that show?
Do you remember? I think I want to say like I know we saw May there. I don't know. It may have been with Juliana Theory.
Yeah.
But I just remember.
We could dig real deep, dude. Blood Brothers. I mean, we could dig real deep on that. I think we saw Head Automatica there. Remember? Didn't we see them and we chased him across the street and met him, Daryl?
Oh, did we? I don't.
Little guy. Yeah, he's a little guy.
Yeah.
And he was very like, oh, thanks, like very kind of meek and like, oh, yeah. We saw. I think we saw like maybe Get Up Kids there. I want to say.
I don't know if I did have seen them, but not there. I remember we went with some people. But yeah, me and Megan were talking about how she's like, you always bring up shows you went to, but you never say like you went to them with Krista, like my girlfriend. And I was like, yeah, I was kind of like, she never really went to the shows with us. I guess me and you just like went without our girlfriends or whatever.
Oh, well, those two were just the two we were dating at the time were freaking drama, dude.
Yeah, we left them behind. I remember we saw Seos at like some like little like bar like in like off Lake Forest. Do you remember that?
Well, they were there, and then they were also, remember that place they were out in Riverside somewhere. Was it Showcase or something? What was that place called out there that we saw them?
There is Showcase. Did we see Seos in there?
We saw him at some random spot. Like I remember seeing like Open Hand out in some random spot, and all these bands, dude. Yeah.
So anyways, yeah, it's too bad that that era is over, and like I said, I don't really know what the new era would be, what we should be listening to. There's TikTok like bands or whatever, like TikTok music. I don't know if you're on TikTok or
I'm not. I don't like TikTok.
Yeah. I think that's like what it's going towards, is more of like kind of like TikTok music, like social media music made for social media or something. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know if there's anything else. Because I could shoot the shit.
There's always I know there's always something else, but I probably gotta get scooting.
Yeah. All right,
let's do it. Let's do it again.
Yeah. One last question to end it on. Well, first of all, what are you drinking now? What is your beverage of
adult beverage of choice?
Yeah.
I always,
I know you're a heavy drinker, so I'm just kidding. I know you like to drink.
I am probably heavier than I should. But no, I am. What I'm really gotten into is, I've always liked like good red wine and stuff, but I've kind of gotten back into like some of the local breweries that make like Mexican lagers, because they're pretty tasty. They're light. You can drink a little bit more of them than some of the heavier stuff. And then what I've kind of come to enjoy every once in a while is do you know what a michelada is?
I've heard of it. It's like a Mexican beer.
It's a well, yeah, but what they do is they add in a little bit of Bloody Mary mix. They put like a tahini deal on the rim, and some other stuff that like basically kind of making what they put in a Bloody Mary, but then they add in a Mexican beer to it, and it's kind of nice and it's a good day drinking beer if you're doing that. So that's something I've kind of got back into a little bit, is kind of some of the Mexican beer stuff.
Yeah. And then lastly, I will ask you, I always ask, I already kind of asked what
I would
music,
ask you, but you
movies,
just
TV
gave,
shows.
I would ask you, but you're showing the Hard Rock right there that you told me about that there, that you got.
Yeah. It's a good deal, man. I mean, it tastes just as good as White Claw or any of those other ones. And it's $5.99 for a whole 12-pack. And I was gonna say this one's a strawberry lime, but they also have like a mojito one, and like a hurricane one, which I don't really know what a hurricane is. It's some sort of
It's a southern drink. It's like one of those blended sugary drinks.
Okay.
That are really strong. The real ones are really strong, but
So yeah, I already asked you about, well, obviously we're going over music, movies, TV shows, but I like to ask about podcasts too. And not only that, but you can, obviously plug your podcast, but then you mentioned Crime Junkie and the Dateline. Do you like any of the, like, any other ones that you would recommend for me, or maybe some of, like, I know you mentioned Tom Segura when I saw you the other day, so that type of stuff, and then we'll just close it out.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been listening to a lot of different podcasts. Really, that's kind of the stuff that I listen. Oh, actually, there is something that I watch that I find interesting, and I actually wish I could do some of this stuff. Not necessarily the same genre, but these guys make these really well made kind of, I don't know if horror is the right word, but kind of eerie YouTube channels, where they either go through and dive through like really weird YouTube videos or YouTube channels, and they like narrate them, they chronicle them, or like different things. Go check out the stuff. It's called Nexpo, Nexpo. And he really well made. He's got like millions of subscribers. Does a really awesome job with some of his stuff. Some of it's like video game stuff, some of it's horror, some of it's like chronicling 4chan and weird shit on Reddit and stuff. He's a good one. Another one kind of similar is called Lazy Masquerade. That's a pretty good one. And then there's another one, Scare Theater, where they just go through it. Sometimes it's about like serial killer stuff and all these. It's kind of bizarre, edgy stuff, but it's really like, I don't know, it captures your attention, at least for me. Those are kind of some weird YouTube stuff that I've been watching a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good one. And like you said, it is
Nexpo is really good. Nexpo is, I think, really
you've
good.
Shown it on the thread or whatever. It's kind of like weird, eerie, like creepy type stuff.
Well, but they break down stuff that they find that's weird, and you're like, I didn't even know this thing exists, or these other channels that you didn't know exist, and you're like, what the hell, this is bizarre. But it's the way they do it, the quality in which they do it is pretty good. So
that's a good one. I listened to some, like that one's called like Ghost Gum, but it's like more of like he goes over like Reddit type stuff, and then one other stuff they go over like podcast, like what went on in like Joe Rogan, but they'll like kind of break it down or whatever. But yeah, so that's good. And I always like to ask, just because I'm always looking for new podcasts and stuff to watch, and I figure we'd probably have similar interests. So yeah, thanks for coming on, and let me know.
Let's do it again.
Let's do it again. I know we could probably talk about, and I know Wayne wants to do it, but we could probably talk about music. I actually try and, I don't know, have some sort of like, not like Wayne was saying, like a 90s grunge type episode or something,
Yeah, post grunge.
Yeah,
it's not.
Yeah, it was good. It was good talking to you, man. I'm sorry about the Bengals loss, but not to end it on a down.
It's okay. It's good year otherwise. It was a good year for them.
There's always next year.
They went far. There's always next year. God, that's going to be on my headstone.
All right. Talk to you next time, man.
All right. See you, dude.
Okay, bye.